Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. F1 is still in its off-season, but there's been plenty happening off the track and in some cases on the track during testing to keep us excited as we head into the 2025 season. This week we question whether Formula 1 stewards should be paid after Johnny Herbert's sacking. We question whether Adrian Newey's 2026 engine regulation predictions will be correct, and the potential cause of Sir Lewis Hamilton's testing crash in Barcelona has been revealed. All that and a whole lot more is coming up in today's show. Let's dive in. So we brought you the news yesterday that Sir Lewis Hamilton had crashed during the second of 3 days of a private Ferrari test at Barcelona's Circuit de Catalunya. Now it's been revealed that apparently he has crashed while testing a new section of the car, a new part on the car, that being a new pedal layout. So that could well have contributed to the crash. And just like I predicted in my video, people were, saying in the comments that Hamilton's washed, he's a has-been, he should retire, he's too old and all this and that, without even knowing what caused the crash. It could well have been a mechanical issue, and this may well kind of contribute towards it. Plus, it's an older Ferrari too. I believe it's from 2023. So it's not even the car from last year nor the car from this year, especially considering the car from this year doesn't exist yet. It's not been released yet. So let's have a look at this article on the F1Chronicle.com, guys, and go through what has happened here. Lewis Hamilton was testing a new pedal layout when he crashed at Barcelona Circuit de Catalunya on Wednesday. As part of the 7-time world champion and Ferrari's preparations for their first season together in 2025, Hamilton was driving a 2023 car when he hit the barriers in the last sector. Ferrari played down the incident but offered no detail, with reports suggesting the bodywork and suspension were damaged at around 11 AM local time. Teammate Charles Leclerc's planned afternoon running in the same car was cancelled. According to La Repubblica and Sky Italia, Hamilton was testing a new layout in the single-seater after struggling with the standard setup on debut at Fiorano last week. There have also been rumours that Hamilton is struggling to adjust to Ferrari's Brembo braking system, having become so accustomed to the carbon industry materials over the course of his long tenure at Mercedes. It was suggested that Hamilton was asking if he could race Carbon Industries brakes in 2025, but Brembo and a source close to Ferrari denied it. The Spanish newspaper Marca reports. Also, apparently Fred Vasseur preferred it too, but of course the Ferrari hierarchy allegedly said no, as did Leclerc. The Italian source Virgilio Motori, there we go, meanwhile says that Hamilton has been working on perfecting the trail braking technique, which is better for Ferrari's Brembo setup. Many have criticised the new Ferrari-Hamilton collaboration, which resulted in the ousting of Carlos Sainz. I read that Luca de Montezemolo is not very happy, Russian F1 commentator Alexei Popov says. Briatore has doubts, even Wolff, although we saw both love and hate him, Wolff, last year. Many will say your career is declining at the age of 40. Yes, in qualifying last year, he lost out to George Russell, but knowing all year that he is leaving and Russell is staying, I don't want to say Mercedes gave him bad parts, but maybe the Ferrari will be built more according to his wishes. That is something that I actually share the viewpoint of. I think that definitely was a contributing factor. Newly ousted F1 steward Johnny Herbert also commented on Hamilton's move to Ferrari, which has attracted near unprecedented levels of global coverage. From what Lewis has been saying so far, his motivation is definitely not lacking, said Herbert. I could probably criticise him a bit and say there have been more mistakes from him than I've seen before, but I think the situation at Mercedes didn't help. It's down to Fred Vasseur to give him the car that he can actually achieve in. Prior to Wednesday's incident, Leclerc was quoted as saying by Sky Italia, I'm very confident because we are doing everything well at the moment, and as a team, we are much more solid. But Formula 1 is a relative sport, and we can only know what we're doing. We don't know if Red Bull or McLaren have found something special in their cars, so it's difficult to say anything about it. We're just focused on ourselves and trying to do the best job possible. Yeah, so it sounds like that new pedal layout may have contributed to it, and that's the point here. This is the thing, right? You're going to have problems in testing, whether it's mechanical issues, whether it's driver issues, making mistakes. We still don't know if Hamilton made a mistake going off of that article. We just know or it's been reported that he's got a different pedal setup. So maybe that's contributed to it. I don't know. We don't know. I mean, for my money, and again, just going off of the reports, it said he crashed in the final sector. The final sector, basically, if you're going to crash there, you are more than likely going to crash in the final two corners, the long sweeping right-handers that take you from the back part of the circuit to the front part and back onto the front straightaway. If you've crashed there, it's probably suspension, steering, tires. It could well be pedal. I mean, I think these days you're probably going to go pretty much flat through those corners. I mean, Hamilton's a very experienced driver, so I doubt he would have made a mistake there. Of course, he could have done. We don't know, but saying that Hamilton needs to retire because he's crashed in testing is ridiculous. And I also saw a handy stat as well that apparently he crashed his McLaren in 2007 while testing as a rookie, and he also crashed his Mercedes in 2013 in his debut, before his debut season for Mercedes. And what did he do in those following years, 2008 and 2014? Won the championship. He did that a few times. So, watch out for Hamilton winning the title in 2026. It's officially confirmed. It's happening. So, Johnny Herbert yesterday was sacked by the FIA as a Formula 1 steward. Something that, to be honest with you, has been coming for quite some time. It's a real conflict of interest, in my opinion, when it comes to somebody deciding on the results of races, being involved in gambling firms, and on top of that being an F1 pundit. It's a real mix of things that should not be mixed together, in my opinion. Now, you can criticise Herbert all you want, and rightfully so when it comes to that. I totally understand why people are not a fan of him. I totally get it, right? But someone raised a very good point in the comments, and I absolutely agree with this person. I mean, I see them quite a bit commenting on these posts. I'll probably put a screenshot of the comment itself just down here. But basically, if you want to read the whole thing, it's pretty much just saying that, the reason why, Herbert may have chosen to take on the role as a pundit and also the role as someone who is involved with gambling firms is because FIA stewards aren't paid. They are volunteers, and this is something that we have spoken about a lot here on the F1 Chronicle, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, there's no reason why these stewards shouldn't be paid. It is an important role. It's a very crucial role. Without the stewards, we can't go racing. And to expect these guys to basically do it as volunteers off of their own back, I feel like is wrong, especially in a sport that generates billions of pounds billions of dollars or whatever currency you want to use. A lot of money. That's a lot of money in revenue every single year. And Mohammed bin Sulayem Al bin Savior, our glorious leader from the FIA, the president, says there's no money for it, which I just think is farcical. But a lot of people have been saying this sentiment that, the F1 stewards should be paid. And I totally agree with this. And a lot of people have been saying it in the kind of media circles as well. So let's have a look at what's been said here, guys. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. It's rumoured at least two teams, including Red Bull, asked the FIA to consider removing controversial Formula 1 steward Johnny Herbert from its roster. Herbert, who was publicly criticised by Max Verstappen and his father last year for alleged pro-British bias and airing those views in published media interviews, was scheduled to be the driver steward at the 2025 season opener in Melbourne. Jos Verstappen told Dutch media during the 2024 season that FIA should take a good look at the staffing of the stewards, who they put there, and whether there is no apparent conflict of interest. Herbert hit back, defending his parallel media work for a range of gambling websites that other outspoken former drivers Jacques Villeneuve and Juan Pablo Montoya also partake in. But the difference is, Mr. Herbert, they are not FIA stewards. They can do that if they wish. Everyone has an opinion, he said at the time. Martin Brundle has an opinion. Why can't I when I'm not at the racetrack? It's not just Max. I will criticise anyone if I feel it's warranted. Is there any kind of bias? No, of course not. I'll let you guys have your say on that. I've made my feelings clear on it. However, on Wednesday, the FIA declared that it has been mutually agreed that Herbert's duties as an FIA steward and those of a media pundit were incompatible. We thank him for his service and wish him well for his future endeavours. The classic statement, get out. Thank you, but get out. In his own statement, Herbert said he was grateful to the FIA for his years as a steward. It is a difficult job and there are tough decisions that have to be made, said the former Benetton, Sauber and Jaguar driver. As Stewards, we have and will continue to treat both drivers and team personnel with the utmost respect and remain impartial at all times during all Grand Prix weekends. At the very same time, McLaren CEO Zak Brown was declaring at the Autosport Business Exchange Conference in London that F1 should end the era of non-permanent unpaid stewards. I don't think we're set up for success by not having full-time stewards, he said. As far as paying stewards, this will probably be unpopular amongst my fellow teams, but I am happy if McLaren and all the racing teams contribute. I think it's so important for the sport. I mean, yeah, I've said this many times. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do it. I'm not saying the teams should be having to fund it themselves. I think like the FIA and the Formula One is more than capable of being able to fund that. There's no reason why not. I don't see why there's not the money for that. It's there. It's there. It just needs to be redirected. And if it means that the revenue that these teams are getting is cut ever so slightly, and because it'd be a percent of their income to pay these, right? They don't have to be paid loads. They just have to be paid a decent wage, because a lot of them are relatively well off. They have to be, you'd think, because they're doing it right now voluntarily. So really, they're all right for money, you would assume. But at least give them some sort of wage so they don't have to go and do other things, right? That's just my opinion on it, and I know a lot of people share that opinion. I already did a video on Johnny Herbert yesterday when this got announced as a breaking news story, so check that out if you've not already seen it, of course. But yeah, what do you guys think? Should the F1 stewards be paid or not? Should the FIA? Because at the end of the day, they have the money. They're finding drivers for all kinds of stuff right now. They got the money. They just don't want to admit it. Where's their money going? Where's the money for the fines going? We still don't know. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below. So, Adrian Newey, the incoming design chief of Aston Martin Formula One, has come out and said that with these new regulations coming up, one engine is likely to dominate Formula One in the new era. Interesting thoughts. I'm going to give mine at the end of the video. We've got a full article here on the f1chronicle.com, but just to give a bit of a TLDR, really, it is very much something that I expect to happen too, and it's something that we have seen before, and it's something that pretty much usually happens, especially with how complicated these engines are. But I'll give my thoughts at the end of this video, guys. Full article on the f1chronicle.com, as always. A single engine manufacturer is likely to dominate Formula One when the all-new and sweeping 2026 regulations come into force. That's the view of Adrian Newey, who amid Red Bull's internal turmoil last year, elected to leave the team and join ambitious Mercedes-powered Aston Martin's Project 2. If you had told me 12 months ago that I would leave Red Bull and start everything completely from scratch, I would have said, no, that can't happen. You're crazy. But for various reasons, I felt that I would be honest with myself if I stayed at Red Bull. Once I had made that decision, the next question was, what did I do next? Of course, the reasons why, allegedly, were because of the whole Hornergate scandal and everything like that. That was a big reason behind it. And the timing of his decision was more than a little coincidental with that, I believe. But that's just my thoughts, of course. The answer is that he will start at Silverstone in early March and predominantly focus on Aston Martin's 2026 package. Although, apparently, he will focus at least a little bit on the 25 car, but he will be mastering brand new rules from the very start and is regarded to be one of Newey's greatest technical strengths. The 66-year-old told Automotor und Sport, "I think there is a strong possibility that it will be an engine-dominated formula at the start. The reality is that I can't think of another time in Formula One where the chassis and engine regulations have changed simultaneously, and in this case the chassis rules have largely been written to try and compensate for the power unit rules, so that's another dimension," Newey explained. When the current generation of engines debuted in 2014, Mercedes came out of the blocks with a huge advantage that paved the road for the works team's run of 7 consecutive drivers and constructors titles, and it was 8 consecutive constructors titles as well, because they won that in 21 as well. I think the engine manufacturers will have learned something from the lack of preparation that Mercedes' rivals had before the change, Newey said, but there is the potential for one manufacturer to stand out far above the rest and for the regulations to be dominated by power units, at least initially, he added. Newey thinks the situation is potentially so serious that single-engine makers' dominance could actually last for the entire duration of the new rule cycle. There is the possibility that if the advantage is won on the combustion engine side, someone can develop a dominant engine that is maintained for the entire duration of the formula, he said. Because the way the rules are written, it's quite difficult for those who are behind to catch up with the leaders. Of course, engine manufacturers now, they have a cost cap as well, of course. Renault and Honda have both fallen foul of that. They both got punished this season just gone for their transgressions in 2021 or 22, I think. It was for a past season anyway. And it was just a relatively small one anyway. It was a fine, I believe, for some sort of paperwork issue, if I remember correctly. Did cover at the time though, so check that video out. If the past George will remember for sure. The current George is not quite sure what it was, but they definitely got punished for it. If the advantage is on the electric side, there is much more scope to make up ground if you're behind. However, the British designer also admitted that he is yet to get his head fully around the new regulations and their likely impact. The power unit rules have been published for a while, said Newey, but on the chassis side, aerodynamics and vehicle dynamics, I don't have much knowledge on that. I've been out of Formula 1 since April 2024, so the truth is I don't know everything there is about the rules at the moment, so that will be a quick learning curve when I start. So yeah, I mean, if you take what he says there as literal, which, you know, you should do. It's Adrian Newey at the end of the day. Of course, yeah, he's not actually... And what he means by that, you know, he's been a Red Bull employee. I think he still is a Red Bull employee. Technically, he doesn't start at Aston Martin until March time, like the article says. But he's not actually worked on the Red Bull car since April 2024, of course. That's been Pierre Vaca over at Red Bull for that. Because, you know, they don't want to give inside information to a guy that's leaving, basically. That's kind of standard. Good old Garden leave and all that. He's been on that either literally or figuratively, pretty much, you know. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I mean, on the whole power unit thing, he's right. In 2014, Mercedes prepared for that new engine regulation really, really early, and it proved absolute dividends. They absolutely bossed the early part of the... I mean, they won all the Constructors' Championships between 14 and 21. It's only when the aerodynamic regulations changed in 22 with the whole ground effect thing that Mercedes were no longer the best team. And I would still say in 2021 they had the best car probably on the balance of things. But obviously on the drivers they did lose out just in the end to Max Verstappen there. But a lot of championships nonetheless. The longest run in Formula 1 history, I believe, in terms of consecutive Constructors' Championship wins. They beat Ferrari's old record. Ferrari had 6 in a row. 99 to 2004. Mercedes blew that out of the water with 8. So we'll have to see what happens. It could be right. It could well be the power unit that defines things. And of course, we've got new power units coming in as well, not just in terms of the regulations but also the suppliers too. Honda, they're going to exclusively supply Newey's team Aston Martin. You've got Audi going to supply themselves, of course, as they transition from Sauber to Audi. And on top of that, eventually we'll get Cadillac as well, with some, maybe it's be branded as something else, but you know, it's going to be interesting. We've got a lot of power units. We've got 5, I believe, for 26, so it's quite a few, and we'll just see how well prepared these guys are. You know, it's impossible to say who will be the best. You know, it's a long way from now. We did see with the previous regulations that in 2014 that relatively so the aerodynamics were relatively not as important, and that could be a negative thing for Aston Martin. It could be a positive thing. I mean, personally, and this is a controversial opinion, but I would argue in 2014, in the first year of that regulation, that Red Bull had the best car, not engine. Take the engine out, you know, of the Mercedes and the Red Bull. I believe the Red Bull was actually the fastest, personally. I mean, it was definitely the second fastest for sure. And it was just the advantage of that Mercedes power unit that was so great compared to the Renault. The Renault was absolutely terrible. I know, who would have guessed a Renault engine in Formula 1 being crap? No, we're never going to see that again, are we? Well, we won't do very soon. This is the last season for now anyway. So yeah, they'll be thing of the past eventually. But yeah, we'll see what happens, guys. It could well be that one team dominates, and it's a pretty pessimistic view of things. But that's usually how it goes with these regulation changes. You can kiss goodbye to 4 teams being in contention for the World Championship in 26. Realistically, that is not going to happen. It's very rare that happens in the history of Formula 1. It might not even happen this year. We haven't started yet. I hope it does. I think it will. But we don't know. Yeah, guys, what do you think? Do you think Newey's right? Do you think a certain engine will dominate the formula in 2026 onwards? Because that regulation set, I think, is going to stay in place until 2029. I think in 2030 we'll have another big change, but I don't think they've fully confirmed that. But they're going for net zero in 2030, so they realistically have to. It'd be impossible not to, surely. Your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Right, so Sir Lewis Hamilton made his much anticipated on-track debut for Scuderia Ferrari last week. Of course, the 7-time world champion is teaming up with the most successful team in the history of Formula 1. for at least the next 2 seasons. Now, this is a move that very much feels romantic. Like I said, best driver in the history of the sport statistically in terms of his achievements, and also the most successful team in the history of the sport as well. Some have been critical of it though. Some have doubted the actual reasons behind this. Some saying that it's not purely down to his racing skill, it's potentially a bit of a marketing exercise. Now, there was a picture recently of Hamilton when he was in Ferrari overalls for the first time. I'll admit, the first time I saw that picture, I thought it was photoshopped, but then I realised that it was actually on Hamilton's official Facebook page, so it was definitely real. Now, I haven't verified the authenticity of these claims, but apparently that post actually earned Ferrari sponsors, which are numerous, of course, the likes of the title sponsor HP, the fuel sponsor Shell, IBM, Unicredit. I'm just reading the things on their shirt, really. But all those people, all those sponsors, collectively earned $500,000 from that one social media post. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know how that works exactly. I know how ad revenue works with these kind of things, but that seems like a lot. That is a lot of money. And with that as well, it kind of does stoke the flames of the fact that some people believe this is not purely down to racing reasons. It's also because it's a bit of a marketing exercise, like I said. And that is certainly the viewpoint of Johnny Ickx, Formula 1 legend, one of the best drivers to never win the World Championship, a sports car legend. I think he actually held the record for the most wins at the 24 Hours of Le Mans until a certain Danish man turned up on the scene in the 1990s. So, and also a former Ferrari driver as well back in the day, back in the 60s and the 70s. So let's have a look at this guy's full article on the F1Chronicle.com. I'll give my thoughts at the end. F1 legend and former Ferrari driver Johnny Ickx thinks the Italian team leapt at the chance to sign Lewis Hamilton, probably for marketing reasons. It has emerged that the first photo of Hamilton at Maranello standing in front of Enzo Ferrari's house with an F40 supercar in the background broke the record for the most liked Formula 1 related image on Instagram in history. The photo has 5.6 million likes at the time of this article being written, and that number is going up. Emotions aside, how much is the 7-time world champion worth to Ferrari, wondered La Repubblica newspaper. Judging from his first photo published last Monday, a lot. The newspaper also published a summary of the estimated and lucrative value per sponsor of Hamilton's first photo in Ferrari gear. That's what I was referencing previously. It's certainly worth it for Ferrari already, respected British commentator Martin Brundle is quoted by Sky Deutschland, even if he was also wondering out loud if the 40-year-old is now past his prime. Well, he might be, but his prime was extremely high. You don't have to be your absolute best. Experience and consistency comes into it when you've done as many seasons as Hamilton has done, but it is a valid question given his age. 8-time Grand Prix winner, who is 80 years of age now, acknowledged that Hamilton's incredible marketing value will have weighed into the decision to sign the famous Briton. Carlos Sainz did very well at Ferrari, he told El Mundo Deportivo. But Ferrari were tempted to sign Hamilton probably for marketing reasons and probably also because he wanted a new experience to include Ferrari in its history. We'll see, Ickx from Belgium added. But there's nothing to criticise Carlos for. He was successful, he won Grand Prix, but that's in the past now. We have to remember that there are many important aspects to F1 and not just politics. There are also economics, marketing, but in the end it's all about winning. It's sad to see that Sainz leaving Ferrari, but you have to move on and you can't consistently think about the things that would have been and why it didn't happen. No, said Ickx, you have to be focused on what you have to do and the best with that. Hamilton and Leclerc will be back on track this weekend in Barcelona in the 2023 Ferrari Formula 1 car before Hamilton gets his first taste of the 2024 Ferrari another week later for a Pirelli tyre test. And Hamilton knows all about Pirelli tyre tests. Look up Barcelona 2013 if you want to go down that rabbit hole. Not that I'm alleging anything went wrong there. Just putting that out there, just a fact. It happened. We know it happened. But anyway, back on the subject of Hamilton. Now, you can read these comments in a critical manner. I'm sure some people would look at that headline and think, well, Ickx is just saying that he's there for the money. He's a pay driver, effectively. He's not there for his talent. That's not what he's saying. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that the commercial aspect to Hamilton would have weighed into Ferrari's decision to sign him. And that's true. It would have done. It can't not, and that's not a criticism, that's a fact. Back in the late 1970s, or was it the early 80s? Early 80s. It was early 80s when Ferrari, they had a fatality in the form of Gilles Villeneuve in 1982. Also in 1982 as well, Didier Pironi suffered a career-ending accident. So effectively, they were desperate for drivers at that point. They were looking desperately to try and find somebody. Now, at the time, I think it was Mario Andretti who ended up signing for them on a one-race deal, and he did very well in that one race, mind you. Of course, the 1978 world champion, legend of the sport. I think he drove for Ferrari briefly in the 60s as well before that. You know, and the commercial aspect to that did weigh into it, just like the deal as well to sign Villeneuve in the first place in the late 70s. Alan Jones, the 1980 world champion who drove for Williams, the Australian driver, I'm sure he spoke about this in a documentary where there was a rumor going around that Enzo Ferrari was obviously struggling financially. Ferrari in general was struggling at that time after Lauda left, and they were looking for a North American driver, and that was part of the reason why they signed Villeneuve, for the commercial appeal of a North American Formula 1 driver. Ferrari would be stupid and ignorant to ignore the fact that Hamilton has massive commercial appeal. And the idea of him teaming up with Ferrari is something that fans have arguably waited at least 10-15 years for now. There's been rumours about Hamilton joining Ferrari as soon as he won the championship, really. Even before then, there were rumours of it, and Hamilton has spoken about his admiration for Ferrari on numerous occasions before he joined the team. Look at the interview with the BBC Sport 2015, I think it was it Bahrain? It was early on in the season. Hamilton driving for Mercedes, and Sebastian Vettel recently joined Ferrari, and Hamilton kind of fell into Vettel's trap of saying basically he wants to drive for Ferrari at some point in his career. And look at him now. It's happened nearly 10 years on exactly. So let's see what happens with this. I mean, I think it is a risk, obviously, signing Hamilton. It's always going to be a risk. It was a risk to keep Carlos Sainz. Less of a risk in a sense, but the rewards of Hamilton, not only financially, but also on the track, a proven world championship winning driver, it could be massive for them. It could win them the championship. It could do. It could also lose in the championship too. It could do. We don't know where Hamilton's pace really is at the moment. I would wager on the fact that he's still very, very quick, and just things are just not working out at Mercedes. He was there for 12 years. 12 years, that's longer than most Grand Prix drivers' careers. So I think it could pay off. It is not a case of it just being financially, and I don't think that's what Ickx is saying. I don't think he's even alluding to that, to be honest with you. Not really. I'd say that the commercial aspect is part of the reason why. It's part of the reason why they kept Charles Leclerc. He's the boy wonder. He's the guy. I mean, yeah, part of the main reason is because he's very good. You know, let's not get away from that. He's not a paid driver by any stretch. He's not Lance Stroll here, is he? You know, but it's the appeal of having him, a Ferrari driver academy driver driving for Ferrari. He is the one they want to be the world champion. Well, they won't mind if Hamilton won it as well. But, you know, while Carlos Sainz was at the team, certainly Leclerc was the guy where it's like, yeah, we want this guy to win the championship. We're going to do everything we can. He's our next star. So there's a lot of factors at play here when it comes to that, financial being one of them. But at the end of the day, Ferrari also has massive commercial appeal as well, even without Hamilton. So what are your guys' thoughts? Is Hamilton at Ferrari because of the commercial aspect to signing him? Is that part of the reason? Is it a significant part of the reason? Was it the right idea to sign Lewis Hamilton for Ferrari? Your thoughts in the comments as always, guys. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always. And we'll see you very soon for some more F1 news and opinion pieces just like this. Have a good one, guys.